Hi everyone, welcome to Romance Stories. Before watching the video, please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. On the eve of my wedding to Serafina, my mother knelt before me, begging, "Daniel, please, don't go through with the wedding. What about letting Serafina go with Kevin?" She continued. "Kevin is suffering from depression. If he knows you're getting married, his condition will only get worse. I'm begging you." I didn't intend to answer. Then, my mother slapped me hard. She was trembling with rage, the veins in her neck bulging from the intensity of her anger. I looked at her and smiled bitterly. "Is everything about me just something to be handed over to Kevin?" I asked. "All of you want me to sacrifice everything. First it was my kidney, and now I have to hand over my future wife to him too." With bloodshot eyes, she grabbed my wrist. "Kevin is still young. He can't live without Serafina. I promise you, once Kevin's condition improves, I'll make sure Serafina comes back to marry you, okay? Daniel, stop being so unreasonably difficult. We are a family. If Kevin is doing well, it's better for everyone, isn't it?" Just then, Serafina knocked and walked in. She looked both excited and flustered, still wearing the wedding dress she was supposed to wear for our ceremony tomorrow. I could see a flicker of hesitation hidden in her brow, but in the end, she only gave my shoulder a light, dismissive pat. "Kevin is waiting for me to come back," she said. Then, the three of them hurried out, leaving me behind like a panicked clown. On the bed lay my suit for tomorrow. I looked at the drawer containing the medical report I received yesterday. I suppose it doesn't matter anymore. I'm dying anyway. If I die, everyone will finally be satisfied. Along with the kidney I donated 6 months ago, and now my fiancé. Everything I have belongs to him. My mother has already notified all our relatives and friends on my behalf. There was no need to wait for tomorrow. The wedding was canceled. Serafina's family was notified as well. The wedding was postponed, and even though I was the groom, I had no right to make a single decision. It was just like 6 months ago when Kevin needed dialysis and a kidney transplant due to sepsis. The whole family was tested to find a match. I had always been the most invisible existence in this house. But on the day the results came back positive, my mother, my stepfather, Mr. K, and my sister all looked at me differently. For the first time, Kevin wasn't in the hospital. Instead, he cooked me a lavish dinner at home. I had never been treated like that since I was a child, and for a moment, I felt almost flattered. But nobody remembered that I am allergic to seafood. The results are a match. You and your brother are compatible. You can save him. I stared at the seafood spread across the table, then suddenly looked up at the 3 people standing before me. "Mom, do you even remember my seafood allergy?" Clara threw her chopsticks at my face, her expression twisting with rage. "Daniel, your brother is dying, and all you're worried about right now is a little allergy." My mother cried out, "Daniel, you have to save him. Don't forget that your tuition and living expenses from childhood until now all came from Mr. K. You must repay his kindness." That day, the rain outside poured down like a deluge. My mother knelt to beg me. Clara looked at me with loathing, and Mr. K watched me with desperate, longing eyes. I laughed. "Mom, if I give him this kidney, can this family promise to never make me do anything like this again? I've already given him everything that was mine." My mother hesitated for a moment, then began nodding her head vigorously, like a pestle grinding garlic. "I promise you. I promise." I agreed. The 3 of them finally let out a long sigh of relief. Looking at the heavy rain outside, my mother hurried to leave. "Kevin is terrified of thunder. He'll be scared if I'm not there." She rushed to the hospital to be with him. I was left alone in the house, staring at the seafood feast on the table. My mind drifted back to the days before my father died. Back then, my mother loved me, Clara loved me, and the whole family took care of me. When did it all start to change? It seems it was 20 years ago. After my father passed away from illness, our quality of life plummeted. My mother took my sister and me to remarry Mr. K. He was a kind, practical man, and his son, Kevin, was lively and beloved by everyone. In contrast, losing my father had turned me withdrawn and somber. I wasn't a happy child in the eyes of adults. Sometimes I would watch Clara, my mother, Mr. K, and Kevin. They looked like a perfect family of 4. I was the surplus person, the 5th wheel. Anything I liked, as long as Kevin liked it too, my mother would give it to him. Even my sister was the same. In her daily life, she preferred the brother who shared no blood with her over me. Kevin would lean affectionately on her shoulder or hop onto the back of her bicycle after school, completely ignoring my awkwardness as I trudged along behind them. Back then, Kevin once whispered to me, "Little brother, your mother and your sister are mine now. You're the one who's extra." When I stood there stunned, my eyes welling with tears, he would run to my mother, hug her, and act like a spoiled child. Then, he would turn back and make a face at me. Thinking back on all of this now, as I lay on the bed, a sudden, violent surge of pain tore through my body, a pain that seeped deep into my bones. Today, the tears finally overflowed. I curled up in the wedding suit I had chosen so long ago, sobbing like a lost, abandoned stray. The next day, I packed my things and returned to the small apartment I shared with Serafina. I thought to myself, "Serafina, we need to talk." But before I could reach her, a notification popped up, a photo of her and Kevin. In the picture, she was laughing like the young girl I first met in college, her eyes relaxed and her expression full of ease. I knew the photo had been sent by Kevin. I called my mother, but she only spoke in a low, rushed whisper. "Serafina is here to stay with Kevin. His condition has stabilized much more because of her." "All right, let's not talk about it for now. I have to go give Kevin his soup." I tossed my phone aside and looked at the puppy whimpering next to me. It jumped into my lap and nuzzled against me. I wondered if it was okay for a puppy to be so close to someone who smelled of sickness and decay. The dog seemed a bit sad. I patted its head. "Be good. I'll take care of things and come back for you later." I drove to the hospital. Inside the room, Mr. K and my mother were looking at each other affectionately as they stood peeling apples for Kevin. Meanwhile, Clara and Serafina were by Kevin's side, helping him track his vitals and playing games to keep his spirits up. Enduring the sharp discomfort in my body, I opened the door and walked in. Kevin's face darkened instantly. He looked at Serafina, his eyes turning red as he feigned a look of intense suffering. "Daniel, could you please just leave Serafina here with me?" Serafina stood up hurriedly, pulling her hand away from his. "Daniel, I was planning to come home early." Mr. K looked a bit embarrassed, but he still forced a smile. "Daniel, Kevin hasn't recovered yet. The whole family will still go to your wedding later." At those words, Kevin seemed to be triggered. He clutched his head and screamed at the top of his lungs. Clara rushed to embrace him, whispering soothing words. "Kevin, don't be afraid. I'm here." My mother shoved me out of the room. "What are you even doing here? Don't you know your brother gets upset the moment he sees you?" I looked directly into my mother's eyes. "Mom, do you even remember that I am your biological son?" For a second, a flicker of doubt crossed her face, but it was quickly replaced by a cold hardness as she pushed me away again. "Daniel, don't be so ignorant. You were able to go to college and grad school. Don't forget that Mr. K paid for every bit of your tuition and living expenses. You need to learn how to be grateful." I gripped my mother's hand, refusing to let go. "Mom, I can pay Mr. K back. I can give him all the money." "Can you?" she snapped, slamming the door shut and refusing to look at me again. I finished my sentence into the empty air. "Can you please just not do this to me?" Serafina opened the door and stepped out. There was a faint trace of guilt in her eyes. "Daniel, there's nothing going on between Kevin and me. He's just suffering from severe depression." I looked at her, the woman I had loved for 7 years. I finally let out a long, heavy breath of relief. It was the relief of finally letting go. "Serafina, do you remember the summer of our first year in grad school, when Kevin had to come to our city for his internship and stayed at our place?" I asked quietly. I could record exactly what he was doing every single day. Her face turned deathly pale. Her fingers tightened, gripping my sleeve. "Daniel, I didn't do anything with him." I nodded slowly. "Right, you didn't do anything. You two just played games together. You watched TV dramas together. You even sat by while he complained about me. And when you were sleeping on the sofa and he leaned in to steal a kiss, you didn't push him away." "Daniel, we're getting married," she cried. "Serafina, we aren't getting married," I replied. I try to act the fool, but it seems even pretending to be stupid can't hide certain truths anymore. Kevin is truly happier than I am. Everyone loves him. I can't play this part anymore. I looked at her, seeing how much she had changed over the years. "I sent you those photos I took back then. You never replied, but I know you saw them. You were tempted. It's not like that." As I turned to leave, Serafina suddenly threw her arms around me. "Daniel, I'll go home with you right now. Our 7-year relationship hung in the balance at that very moment. But then, Kevin's face appeared at the hospital window. He began slamming his head against the wall with violent force. The sound was sickening. His forehead split open, and blood began to pour down his face. He looked at me through the glass and screamed, "Daniel, why do you want to take everything away from me?" Serafina hesitated. Her grip on my arm loosened. A flicker of avoidance crossed her eyes. She let go and began to open the door to run back to him. I knew at that moment our 7-year love was dead. The screams of my mother and Clara rang in my ears again, the most vulgar insults imaginable. My mother used every curse in her vocabulary, fueled by her frantic worry for Kevin, branding me an outside intruder. Clara pinned me against the wall, her eyes burning with hatred. "Daniel, can't you show some common sense? Are you an idiot? Do you want to tear this whole family apart?" I looked at my sister and my mother and spoke calmly. "Don't worry. Serafina belongs to your precious Kevin now." Serafina didn't chase after me. I drove back to our apartment in total despair. I packed every bit of my luggage, took my dog, and walked out of the home we had shared for 7 years. It's funny, in a dark way. Even after being with her for 7 years, the only things in that apartment that actually belonged to me fit into a few large boxes that were easy to carry away. I went to find Philip. He's my best friend. Years ago, he decided to move to the Highlands to raise livestock and drink away his worries for a few years. When I called him, he was out herding sheep on the plains. "Philip, I'm driving to your place. I've always said I wanted to see the grasslands." "What's up, man? You okay?" "Philip, I'm already on the road." I drove like a madman. When Philip met me at the gas station, the first thing he did was pull me into a bone-crushing hug. "Daniel, why have you lost so much weight? You're nothing but a bag of bones." "I'll be honest with you, Philip. I think I'm dying." "Don't joke like that. Is it that serious?" I hugged him back tight. "Late-stage bone cancer. I'll be gone soon." Philip frantically tried to push me back toward my car. "I'm taking you to the hospital right now for treatment." I shook my head. "No, I'm tired. I just want to see the grasslands, watch your sheep wander. I can't afford the treatment anyway. I want to leave this world with no regrets." I left my car at the service station and climbed into Philip's pickup truck. I sat in the back, leaning against Goldie, finally letting myself rest. Serafina called. I pulled the SIM card out of my phone and tossed it out the window. "Does Serafina know?" Philip asked. "She doesn't deserve to know. What about your mother and sister?" "It's been a long time since they were mine. They are someone else's mother and sister now." The truck stopped in front of his ranch just as dawn was breaking. The sun crept up from the horizon, its pale light piercing through the darkness. It was the first time Goldie had ever seen such a vast expanse of green. He ran like crazy, tongue lolling out, jumping with pure joy. I thought to myself, if I die, leaving him here on these plains would be a good thing. He can run forever without a care in the world. Philip lit a cigarette, the smoke instantly whisked away by the wind. His eyes were bloodshot. Finally, he spat out the cigarette and ground it into the dirt with his boot, over and over with violent force. Come on, Daniel. Are you an idiot?" He was at a loss for words. He dragged me into his tent, then turned his back to me, his voice thick with suppressed tears. "Daniel, Serafina promised me once. She promised she would take good care of you. Is this the result of her care?" I gently patted his shoulder. "It's not her fault. It just is what it is. What if we just don't mention her anymore?" I asked. "Am I weak? I chose to hide away because I don't want to see them ever again." "No, Daniel," Philip replied firmly. "You can never wake someone who is pretending to be asleep. Likewise, you can't use reason to reverse the blatant favoritism of your mother and sister. Honestly, it's a blessing that you ran away." Another wave of agony swept through my body. My face turned ashen as I fumbled to pull the painkillers from my pocket. Goldie lay by my side, whimpering softly as if he could feel my spirit breaking. When Philip handed me the water, my palms were trembling violently. I forced a weak smile. "Philip, I have one more thing to do. I need your help. My mother always said I owed Mr. K so much money for school, for my life, for my degrees. I've saved quite a bit over the years. This $500,000, can you transfer it to their account for me? Philip, you're my best friend. I'm truly sorry to burden you with this." I took a breath. "There is still $150,000 left on the card. Keep it as my final gift to you." Philip looked at me, a heavy, ragged sigh escaping his chest. Daniel, this money, you could use it for treatment. Keep it. I shook my head. Philip, I don't have time. He didn't argue anymore. He just turned his back to me and wiped his eyes. Philip, I'm sorry. This is so hard on you. If you feel this is bad luck, I can go and die somewhere far away by myself. Daniel, don't talk like that, he choked out. I have money too. I have plenty of sheep and cattle. I can pay for your medical bills. Just please get the treatment. With bloodshot eyes, I reached out and ruffled his hair. Philip, do you know? Right now, even standing up straight is agony. I want to die with dignity. I don't want chemotherapy. I don't want my hair to fall out. I don't even want to die in the same city as them. Philip stopped trying to force me to see a doctor. That day, he sat on the grasslands for a long time, clutching my medical report. Even from inside the tent, I could hear him sobbing uncontrollably. He finally made the transfer from my car to Mr. Case. Soon after, my mother actually called him a rarity. Is that brat Daniel still making trouble? She asked, her voice sharp. He went to find you, didn't he? Well, I'm relieved then. Tell him we received the money. And that money came just in time to pay for Kevin's treatment. My mother's voice crackled through the phone. Philip couldn't help but ask with biting sarcasm, if Daniel were the one dying, would you protect him the way you protect Kevin? My mother's voice turned sharp and defensive. Philip, just tell Daniel to stop fighting with Kevin. Philip couldn't hold back anymore. Auntie, Daniel's kidney. Wasn't that enough to repay you for raising him? My mother froze. She didn't answer. She simply hung up the phone. I knew her far too well. When facing Kevin, she was a perfect mother, loving, caring, and attentive. But when facing me, other than forcing me to grow up too soon and telling me never to argue with my brother, she never had anything else to say. Even when I was accepted into a prestigious university, she merely glanced at the admission notice with indifference. She was only worried that my success would upset Kevin, whose own scores hadn't even reached the halfway mark. It doesn't matter anymore. I've grown used to it. The truck stopped amidst the green grass of the plains. We were sitting in the back of the pickup, watching Goldie run wild. I leaned against the side of the truck. After I'm gone, scatter my ashes here. Next year, the grass on this meadow will surely grow thicker. Philip didn't answer. He took a piece of candy from his pocket and stuffed it into my mouth. Fine. Let's not talk about whether those people are good or not. Philip was still crying. I asked the doctor, he choked out. They said if a patient loses the will to live, the disease progresses even faster. You gave up a kidney 6 months ago. You've been sick all these months, haven't you? I patted him gently. Philip, I just don't have any strength left. Philip pulled me into a tight embrace. I suddenly found myself remembering so many things from my childhood. Philip, do you remember? After my father died, so many people bullied me. They said I was a child without a father. You were the only one who stood up for me. Philip didn't speak. He only let out a ragged sob. His tears fell onto my forehead. I kept talking to myself, drifting through memories. You've always protected me. I have one last gift for you before I go. Philip, I've named you as the beneficiary of my critical illness insurance. You should live a good life. Philip completely broke down. Daniel, have you ever thought about what happens after you're gone? I reached up and wiped his tears. Don't you love these grasslands the most? From now on, you'll surely see me every time you come here. And my puppy, Goldie, is such an obedient little dog. He only likes eating real food. He hates dog food. He only wants the meals I cook for him. I'll train him well over the next few days. Once he stays with you, I can rest in peace. He'll have a wonderful time here. I looked at Goldie not far away, his tongue lolling out as he smiled at me. Goldie, be good and stay here from now on, okay? Philip kept pleading with me, his voice thick with desperation. Daniel, please don't do this. Let's go get treatment. I don't want your money. I'll take you myself. What use is money if you're not here? I can't take care of your puppy alone without you. Why should a dying man waste money on himself? I looked at Philip and spoke with a solemn gravity. Philip, I don't want to waste any more time. I just want to spend these last days looking decent, okay? My nose began to bleed. He rushed over, frantically trying to stop the flow. Then he suddenly stood up and screamed at the sky. Why don't the villains die instead? He drove me back to the ranch. During the break, while the lambs in the flock were napping, I turned on my phone. I saw messages from Serafina. She had found my backup number. Her texts were like madness. He's going to break up with me soon. Don't even think about it. I knew all of this was Kevin's handiwork. Then, A familiar sequence of numbers suddenly appeared on the screen. Despite everything, I answered. It was my sister, Clara. Her tone was awkward. I don't know about Serafina, but could you? I agreed before she could even finish. Clara, I agree. I won't bother Serafina. If Kevin has the ability, she is his. There was a hint of impatience in Clara's voice. What do you mean by that? The pain in my body made me weak. I laughed quietly. Clara, do you remember? Back when Dad was still here, you used to carry me on your back. Clara, I've paid back all the money to Mr. K. Can you give my mother and my sister back to me now? Clara's voice suddenly faltered, sounding startled. Daniel, what is wrong with you? Where are you? I felt a sudden sense of relief and whispered, Clara, I've given all my money, my kidney, and my girlfriend to the K family. It should be clear now. We're even. Mom won't call me ungrateful anymore, will she? Clara, are you still angry that I didn't feel sorry enough for Big Brother? Well, everything is his now. It's all his. Daniel, where are you? Clara's voice trembled on the other end. Clara, if I could have chosen, I wouldn't have wanted to be Daniel at all. I hung up. The agony in my body surged again, a violent tide. I watched Philip feeding Goldie a short distance away. I couldn't just sit here. I forced myself to stand, trying to walk toward them step by step, but the world went black. When I woke up, my vision had begun to blur. I knew the cancer had started its final conquest of my body. My temperature was dropping. I felt a bone-deep, hollow cold. Although I hated to admit it, I was defenseless. The metastasis had spread. I had no strength left to fight, and even my dignity was slipping away. Philip came in. He didn't say a word as he helped change my clothes. In less than a month, the stress of watching me wither away had transformed him. He looked like a ghost of his former self. With an expressionless face, he led Clara into the tent. Clara's eyes were bloodshot, surrounded by dark circles. At first glance, she looked as though she had been through a war. I felt a wave of dizziness. I really have nothing left to give Kevin. I whispered, my voice cracked. Clara, can you please stop forcing me? Am I going to die in so much pain that I can't even have a moment of peace? Clara suddenly collapsed to her knees, sobbing like a child. Wiping her nose in tears, she crawled toward my bedside. Daniel, let me take you home. Let's go home and get you treated. I'll never side with anyone else again. You are my biological brother, my only brother. How could you? I mustered the strength to push her away. Clara, I'm begging you, get away from me. She reached out to touch me, but I flinched, avoiding her hand without a trace of hesitation. She looked stunned. Suddenly, with eyes full of tears, she asked, It hurts a lot, doesn't it? Daniel, please, come home with your big sister. I finally snapped. The mask of composure I had worn for years shattered. I began to scream at her, my voice raw. Clara, I am dying. Why are you trying so hard to pretend to be a good person now? If you truly ever thought of me as your brother, then please, let me never see your face again. Philip stepped in and escorted her out. I struggled to regain my breath, my heart heavy with a cold, final calm. Philip wiped his eyes and spoke quietly. She found her own way here. I've already driven her away. Don't be angry. I don't know what Philip said to Clara, but she never appeared before me again. The pain grew worse day by day. Even the strongest painkillers have become useless. I spent my hours gritting my teeth against the agonizing surges. Only Philip dared to let out a cry of frustration and grief once he was safely outside the tent. Goldie didn't like to run outside anymore. He clung to me constantly, trying to protect and love me with the only presence he had. Despite the excruciating ache in every joint of my body, I forced myself to sit up and try to play a game of frisbee with him. I raised the plastic disc high and threw it into the distance. But Goldie remained motionless. He just lay by my side, pressing against my calves. I stroked his head. You want to make me happy, don't you? Go on, go fetch it. Good boy. Goldie finally ran toward the disc at my request, but he turned his head back with every single step. He was terrified that if he looked away for even a second, I would disappear. Daniel, don't try to move, Philip warned. I lied to him. I told him the painkillers were working and that I could slowly stand and walk on my own. For a moment, he actually looked happy. He truly wanted to believe that my health was showing signs of improvement. Clara didn't come to see me anymore, but I often saw her shadow pacing outside the tent. She left piles of snacks and nutritional supplements. Among them was an Ultraman action figure set, the one I had dreamed of as a child. I still remember that day. Mr. K had bought a single set. There were 4 figures. 2 were supposed to be mine, and 2 were for Kevin. But Kevin wanted all 4. Without a word, my mother handed every single one of them to him and put them in his room. She even scolded me in front of Mr. K. Do you think it's easy for your stepfather to pay for your school? And you still want to play? If you're so capable, buy your own toys with your own money when you grow up. Stop bothering Mr. K and Kevin. Philip hesitated. Do you think they could actually be feeling regret? My mother, Philip. Even if she wants to be kind to me now, it's useless. I don't need it at all. Besides, I whispered, I don't want her to live in the shadow of guilt. Just let her go. I whispered, tell her not to come back. If they call, just pretend I'm still alive and well, living somewhere far away. Philip sighed heavily, but said nothing. Just then, Serafina's calls began flooding Philip's phone. Philip loathed her deeply, his voice turning cold and cruel when he finally answered. I had already threatened him. If he told a soul about my condition or brought anyone here, I would never forgive him, not even in the next life. Serafina's tired, raspy voice came through the speaker. She was pleading. Philip, you're his best friend. Please, just tell me where he is. Philip let out a mocking sneer. And what if I do? Is it because Kevin isn't bothering you anymore? He's been depressed and frail since he was a kid, but somehow he still has such a cheerful personality, doesn't he? Does anyone ever stop to feel sorry for Daniel? Serafina paused, then sighed. Daniel has always been so kind-hearted. I don't understand why he's pushing me away like this. He even gave his kidney to his brother 6 months ago. Why can't he just endure him now? I know Daniel feels wronged, but Kevin's depression makes him extreme. He's suicidal. We can't afford to just watch him die. Philip began to growl with rage. If it's so easy for him to die, then why hasn't he just done it already? Philip roared. After slamming the phone down, he suddenly realized he had lost control again. I probably look pretty ugly right now, don't I? He muttered. He picked me up gently to change my sheets and my clothes. I'm sorry, Philip, I whispered weakly. I'm dragging you down with me. Don't say that, Daniel. Please, just don't say that. He tried to comfort me, his voice cracking. To keep me from worrying, Philip took Goldie out to herd the sheep, trying to maintain the facade that everything was normal, just like the days before. But I knew the truth. I waited for them to leave, then pulled out a pen and paper to write my final words. I truly cannot endure this excruciating pain any longer. More than that, I don't want to drag my best friend down into the depths of my suffering. I refuse to let this illness strip away my dignity piece by piece until nothing is left. People like Philip deserve to have a normal life. I gathered my suicide note, my medical records from before I fell ill, and all my insurance policies into one place. Finally, I decided I would stop driving. I didn't want the tires to ruin the grass. The grass had just begun to show its vibrant vitality. Why should it be crushed? I struggled to saddle a horse, bringing along the navigation tools I had prepared long ago. I began to ride toward the Mother River, the great winding river that lay ahead. In my entire life, I never truly felt a mother's love. So, let me be selfish just this once. Let me die in the embrace of this Mother River. I urged the horse forward, riding faster and faster. I knew that once Philip discovered I was gone, he would come racing after me with Goldie at his side. I stood on the bank, watching the rolling currents before plunging in. The cold liquid rushed into my nose and lungs. I sank toward the riverbed without a second of hesitation. In that moment, I knew I was finally free. When Philip returned to the tent, he realized Daniel was missing. The bed was neatly made, and the floor had been swept clean. Confused, his eyes fell upon a piece of paper resting on the pillow. It was Daniel's suicide note, along with the insurance policy he had mentioned before. Goldie sensed it too. The dog began to whimper in a panic. The suicide note read, I'm sorry, Philip. I truly cannot endure the pain anymore. In my entire life, I never felt a mother's love. Let me return to the Mother River. Philip raced to the riverbank with Goldie in the truck. He found a group of shepherds gathered tightly around a small area. His heart sank into the very marrow of his bones. He pushed through the crowd, only to find Daniel's pale, lifeless body. The local police had already investigated. Between the medical records and the suicide note, there was nothing left to say. Philip was catatonic with grief. Goldie ran circles around Daniel's body, frantic and howling. Philip suddenly remembered what Daniel had said when he first arrived. Scatter my ashes on this meadow. The grass will surely be greener next year. With the help of the shepherds, Philip held a small funeral for Daniel. As the sky filled with the glow of the funeral pyre, Goldie tried to dive frantically into the flames to follow his master. Philip broke down, sobbing as he held the dog back. In that moment, his spirit finally snapped. Daniel, you were always too soft-hearted. Just then, Clara appeared, carrying a bag of Daniel's favorite snacks. She saw the red glow of the fire and the group of herders in the distance. She walked over and saw Philip clutching Goldie, weeping bitterly. She tried to convince herself that the man in the fire couldn't possibly be her brother. She crouched on the ground and looked at Philip. Who is that? Philip looked at Clara with pure, unadulterated hatred. Who is it? It's your biological brother, the one from the same mother. Isn't it a bit late for your penance now? Clara was stunned, her world collapsing. How? No, it can't be. How could that be my brother? She tried to rush into the sea of fire, but the shepherds held her back. The fire roared, the wood popping and crackling. It was the sound of flesh and bone turning to ash, the final sound of Daniel leaving a world that never truly wanted him. Philip felt as though his heart had been pierced by 10,000 arrows. When the fire finally died down, Clara was lying on the grass, weeping. He stepped past her and began to collect Daniel's ashes. Clara looked up from the side. Will you give him back to me? I want to take him home. Philip turned his face away, ignoring her. With agonizing care, he gathered every fragment of Daniel's remains into an urn. He finally looked at Clara, his voice cold. You don't deserve him. A few days later, when the weather turned beautiful and the sun was bright, the flock of sheep grazed peacefully on the plains. Philip drove to the exact spot where he had last taken Daniel. He carefully began to scatter the ashes across the vast green meadow. Clara had followed him. When she saw the wind catch Daniel's ashes, carrying them across the sky, she collapsed again. She knelt before Philip, begging, Please, just let me take him home. Philip suddenly let out a chilling laugh. Clara, where exactly is home for him? Didn't you destroy his home piece by piece with your own hands? Kevin is your brother. Daniel. He has nothing to do with you anymore. Clara sat frozen on the ground. Philip continued, speaking more to himself now. Daniel said he wanted to be spread across these plains. He said the grass would grow greener next year. As Philip walked away, he whispered a final prayer. Daniel, they will all face their retribution. In the next life, please don't be family with them again. Clara clung to the empty urn, placing it carefully into a bag she had prepared. She stroked the porcelain, whispering to herself, Daniel, I'm taking you home. But deep down, she understood. Daniel would never call her big sister again. She remembered him as that sensitive little boy, the one who never said a word, never even shed a tear, even when their mother gave the things he loved to Kevin. Back then, she had even convinced herself that maybe Daniel didn't really like those things, that it didn't matter if they gave them to Kevin instead. After all, Kevin had such a sweet mouth. He would hug her neck and act like a spoiled child, bringing a flicker of happiness to their mother's face. She had seen how hard Mr. K worked. She knew it wasn't easy for him to earn the money to raise 3 children. She understood her mother's humility and caution. She understood even better the words her mother constantly drilled into both her and Daniel. You must be grateful. At first, she had felt sorry for Daniel. But as time passed and Daniel's personality became increasingly withdrawn and eccentric during his teenage years, her patience wore thin. She didn't have the energy to care for a sensitive, suspicious younger brother. She told herself everything would be fine once they grew up, but she didn't realize when she had started becoming exactly like her mother. When Daniel was accepted into a prestigious university, she had bought a laptop as a gift for him. But then Kevin spoke up. Big sister, is this the gift you bought me for when I go to college? She had simply nodded and handed it over. It wasn't that she didn't see the flash of crushing disappointment in Daniel's eyes. She just thought it would be okay. She told herself there would be more opportunities in the future. When Daniel succeeded again later, she bought a phone to give to him. But before it could reach his hands, Kevin discovered it. Is this for me, sister? For the first time, Clara tried to refuse him. This is for Daniel. He just passed his graduate entrance exams. Kevin's eyes immediately reddened, and tears began to fall. "Sister, you don't love me anymore. You only love your blood brother, don't you?" Her heart softened instantly. She handed the phone to him. She saw Daniel standing clearly behind the door, watching the entire exchange. But she said nothing. Thinking back on this now, Clara felt utterly worthless. She looked down at her own palms, the hands that had effectively pushed her own brother into Kevin's shadow time and time again. She broke down into violent sobs on the plane. The other passengers looked at the weeping woman with expressions of pity, but they couldn't know the depth of her guilt. She remembered that rainy night, how she and everyone else at home had backed him into a corner. She thought of the night Daniel donated his kidney. How much must his heart have broken then? Clara didn't dare to imagine it. On the eve of his wedding, to be knelt to and begged by his own mother to give up his fiancée. When Serafina let go of his hand and walked away, how much agony must he have felt? Clara couldn't bear the thought anymore. She closed her eyes, but all she could see was Daniel's tear-filled gaze outside the hospital room. It wasn't that she hadn't seen the utter despair in his eyes. When he had said, "Don't worry, Serafina belongs to your precious Kevin now," it wasn't that she hadn't wanted to chase after him. She had always told herself she would make it up to Daniel in the future. She never realized that on the day Daniel walked away, there was no future left to give. When Clara arrived home, she found that her mother and Mr. K were still at the hospital with Kevin. She drove straight there. Serafina was sitting outside the patient's room, her thumb hovering over her phone as she tried yet again to call Daniel's number. Clara stopped in front of her. Her voice was hoarse. "There's no need to call anymore. Daniel is dead." Serafina stared up at her, dazed. What did you just say?" She suddenly snapped, lunging at Clara and shouting, "What are you talking about?" Clara wiped the blood from the corner of her lip where Serafina had struck her. She repeated, cold and steady, "Daniel is dead." Serafina shook her head, desperate to deny the truth. Just then, the hospital room door swung open. Their mother stepped out, looking annoyed. "Clara, you said you want to find Daniel. Where is he? Tell him to come back and handle the money for Mr. K. Mr. K will pay him back later. There's no reason for him to be hiding from us like this. After all, we're family." Clara looked at her mother's angry face. Suddenly, a wave of dark malice rose in her heart. If Mother finds out Daniel is dead, will she collapse just like I did? "Daniel is back," Clara said coldly. "But he couldn't come here on his own." As expected, her mother grew even more furious. Kevin hurried over to play the peacemaker, leaning on his mother's arm. "Mom, please don't be angry. Maybe my little brother is just upset with me." Clara suddenly let out a smile that was twisted and bizarre. "He really won't be coming. Because he's dead." Her mother's brow furrowed. "You've gone mad. How could you curse your own biological brother like that?" On the side, Serafina was trembling with terror. She had finally gotten through to Philip. Philip's voice crackled through the speakerphone for everyone to hear. After Daniel died, he named several people as beneficiaries on his insurance policy. "I'll be back in a few days to settle things." He hung up. Their mother still refused to believe it. "Stop playing these tricks on me." Kevin shouted from the side, "Sister, are you and Daniel teaming up to scare Mom?" Clara's gaze fell on Kevin's face. She looked at him with an expressionless, hollow stare. "Kevin, you really need to take good care of your body. Don't forget, you still have one of Daniel's kidneys inside you." Despite her mother's denial, the doubt had begun to take root. Still fuming, she followed Clara back home to see for herself. When she saw the pink urn, she began to mutter to herself. How was this possible? Daniel was always so sensitive, so obedient. He was always in good health. They even checked him thoroughly when he donated his kidney. There were no problems. It's impossible. Philip brought Goldie back to the city they once knew. He entered Daniel's room, a space that was small, dark, and cramped, separated only by a thin wall from the kitchen. He looked back at Kevin's room, south-facing and warm, with a large, soft bed. Seeing the contrast, Philip's contempt for Daniel's mother deepened. Daniel's mother still refused to believe he was gone, until the insurance agent arrived. When Philip produced the suicide note and the death certificate, she collapsed onto the floor in a daze. As for the man called his stepfather, Mr. K remained largely indifferent. Serafina stood there with bloodshot eyes, but even Goldie refused to go near her. The insurance agent spoke solemnly. Mr. Daniel purchased this policy 2 years ago. The named beneficiaries are his mother, his sister, Mr. Philip, and Ms. Serafina. Since Mr. Daniel has passed away, the compensation will be disbursed according to the contract and credited to your accounts as scheduled. When Daniel's mother finally read the suicide note, the tears finally came. The letter was brief, just a few strokes of a pen, but every word cut like a diamond. Notably, the letter didn't mention her or Clara at all. Before Philip left, Serafina begged him to let her keep the suicide note. Philip agreed. If having that letter meant they would feel the sting of heartbreak every single day, then Daniel's suffering wouldn't have been entirely in vain. Once his business in the city was finished, Philip took Goldie back to the grasslands. While playing frisbee with the dog, he suddenly remembered those days when Daniel would crouch by the tent, teaching Goldie not to keep looking back. Philip finally lost control. He let out a primal scream toward the horizon. "Daniel, you told everyone not to look back at you, but how is that possible?" In the months that followed, Daniel's mother fell into a total mental breakdown. Eventually, she chose to divorce Mr. K. Even then, Kevin felt no remorse for stealing Daniel's life. On the day she moved out, he looked at her with a triumphant, mocking smirk. "My father married you just so you take care of me, didn't he?" Kevin sneered. "Now that your own son is dead, you can focus on taking care of me even better." My good mother. Daniel's mother finally woke up to the horror. All those years she had scolded and neglected Daniel as if he weren't even her own son. She didn't dare to dwell on what she had done before he died. Sleep eluded her, and her hair turned gray as she withered away in the shadow of her own guilt. Every day, Daniel's mother whispers to the void, "Daniel, please come back and see if your mother is doing okay." Meanwhile, Serafina fled to the countryside and vanished from her old life. She chose to become a high school teacher in a remote village, preferring that to the agony of looking at Kevin every day. Kevin, eventually unable to handle the tension, snapped at Clara, "You aren't my sister anymore. Why do you keep staring at me like that?" Clara looked at him with eyes as cold as ice. "Because inside your body rests my brother's kidney." But these acts of penance, they were all far too late. Daniel's final letter to Philip. "My dear Philip, I am so sorry that even in my final moments, I dragged you down for over a month. I simply couldn't bear to let my dignity be swallowed whole by this disease. I didn't want you to be drowned in endless hospital sheets and medical bills. You moved to the grasslands because you yearned for freedom, yet I selfishly brought my burden to your doorstep. I wanted to die somewhere far away. But before I set out, I looked at these plains and reflected on my life. I never truly felt the warmth of a family, the love of a mother, or the protection of a sister. Yet, I alone was blessed with the most precious friendship in the world. I have named you the beneficiary of my insurance, and I am leaving everything to you. I have a few more things I must trouble you with. Goldie is the puppy I've raised for 4 years. When I first passed that pet shop, he was jumping by the window just to get my attention. The shopkeeper told me he wasn't in good health and sold him to me for half price. He has been with me for so long. He is so obedient, though a bit of a glutton. He hates dog food. He only loves the nutritious meals I cook for him. I've written down the recipe on a separate note. Please, take good care of Goldie. The grasslands are so peaceful. He will finally be free there. I hope you don't feel sorry for me. Don't be sad on my account. Also, if Serafina ever comes looking for you, please tell her this. We are not bound by any marriage certificate. She is a completely free woman. Tell her not to let moral guilt hold her back, but to find a new path in life. I was gravely ill, yet I selfishly still wanted to hold a wedding with her. But life is full of regrets, and I don't feel sorry anymore. Philip, please live a life of freedom in my stead. Don't grieve for me. The waters of the Mother River can be warm. My only hope for my next life is that I never meet my old family again. I hope to have parents who truly love me and a sister who protects me. Philip, don't cry. I don't know how long or how far I have wandered in this world anymore. I only remember that I will never look back. Gradually, I've even forgotten who I am. I traveled everywhere, visiting the places I had once only dreamed of. Just as my wishes were about to be fulfilled, my soul began to fade away. I took one last look at the world and closed my eyes. Suddenly, someone whispered in my ear, "Please, help me take this child away. Bring him to my sister as fast as you can." I don't know how many forests I was carried through. Outside, The rain was pouring so heavily that I couldn't hear what the two people were saying. Then another pair of hands reached out, receiving me and pulling me into a warm embrace. Don't cry. Annie will take you home. Back to our cloud family. And that's the end of the story, a rather sad ending. Of course, if there are happy stories, there will also be sad ones. Kevin's ending isn't very clear. It's left somewhat open to interpretation. Thank you all for listening.